What is up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got Andreas from Naglfar. Thank you so much for your time today, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. It's so awesome to have you here. The newest album is Cerecloth, the first new Naglfar album to come out in 8 years. Did you just consider this picking up where you left off after Terras, or did you think was this almost just like a new beginning for Naglfar?
Well, we started writing basically just after Teos, and then we hit some speed bumps basically due to family life and work. So I would say the material stretches for the whole 8 year period.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, so it's not like we've been gone. So it's not. I wouldn't call it a new start, so to speak, because we never left.
Yeah, it's not like this is a comeback album like what Carcass did or something like that, right?
Oh, nothing like that. No.
Yeah. Being that you were working on this for a period of 8 years, did like the material like change a lot over that period of time, or what we hearing is like the first initial take of it?
I mean, not everything that we did was kept, of course. So, but I mean, some material is from around maybe 2013, 14, and onwards, all up until 2019.
Okay.
So,
being that you have so many albums now at this point, like, do you have like a formula or a sound that you always try to stick with in the Naglfar catalog, or do you take a new approach to everything? Is there any experimentation in the songwriting process?
I mean, we try not to repeat ourselves, but I mean, when doing something for so many years, you get, you get used to a certain way to work. And me and Marcus has been writing together for such a long time, so we almost, immediately recognizes if it's something that will be suitable for Naglfar or not.
Yeah,
and then we keep working on it. But with that said, I mean, there's nothing. There's nothing wrong if try to think outside of the box as well. But yeah.
I feel like people who liked Cerecloth could also appreciate albums such as Diabolical or Pariah or Harvest, etc. So like, I feel like you guys have a sound that really defines you. If the machine isn't broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Would you say that, like, when you look at the entirety of the Naglfar catalog, that, like, maybe it's almost kind of like representative of who you and Marcus and everybody else in the band were at that particular time? Do you look at these albums as almost like a self-portrait?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure if I would call it that, but I mean, it's part of who we are as people. So, in a sense, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever go into songwriting with like a preconceived idea of how you want something to sound, or is there kind of like a lot of improvising involved?
I mean, usually we have a rough idea what we want to do, but in the end, it almost never turns out like that as it was initially planned. So I think it's always good to have an idea, but be prepared to leave it behind if necessary.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, especially when I was listening to Cerecloth, it sounded very, very organic. So it almost seemed like that you almost don't need to dictate yourselves in a way, right?
Yeah.
Now, one thing I was always curious about is, from listening to Cerecloth, I thought like a lot of songs had many different emotions behind it. I felt like Horns had like a different vibe than a song like Poison for the Soul, or a song like The Dagger in Creation. Do you try to capture a moment in a way with the music, in a way like of what you guys are feeling at a particular time?
It's a difficult thing to answer, I guess. Yeah, you might say that. Usually, when we write something, it's usually what we are feeling at the time, and then we always finish the songs before writing the lyrics. So I never start writing lyrics until I have the finished song, and that's at least how I work. And then I usually come up with an idea for the song from listening to the music. That inspires me to write the lyric.
So it's fair to say you've never like revolved your music around a concept or anything like that, right?
I'm sorry.
That means you never like really revolved your music around a concept. You would never consider a Naglfar album to be a concept album or something like that.
No, maybe a red thread goes through it, and we actually have talked about doing concept albums. Cerecloth was actually. I actually started out as something completely different, and there was an idea that maybe it should be a concept around it, but we had to leave that behind because it didn't turn out like that. But you never know in the future, maybe.
You ever worried like the stuff you'll leave out of an album will be a B-side one day and it's be the biggest hit you guys ever had?
Well, I never thought about that. I mean, if we cut it out, it's for a reason, you know.
Yeah. Do you like to leave the music open to interpretation, or is the goal of the band to maybe engage the listener into the story or the lyrics or anything about that as well?
I mean, it's that standard cliche, I guess, that I prefer if people make up their own interpretations, and that's what, I mean, I have my idea about what the songs are about and what stories they tell, but I mean, if someone can find something else in them, that's what I prefer.
Yeah, I've always thought like you're the type of band where if I'm listening to an album, I have to listen from start to finish. So like with the new album, I recommend people start off with Cerecloth and end with Last Breath of, I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry, but you recommend like a listener were to listen to the album chronologically, right? Like, do you think it wouldn't be good if like we listened to it on shuffle or something like that? We wouldn't have a better understanding of it, right?
I mean, when we set the song lists, you know, for the albums, I mean, there's thought behind it. So I would prefer. I mean, I would prefer if people listen from start to finish, because that's the way we felt it was supposed to be experienced. But in the end, I mean, for me, it's up to the listener. I mean, we live in a world today where people can't keep their attention for a full album. That's just how it is. So if you want to pick songs, then go ahead.
Mm-hmm. One question I was really, really curious about, and it might be a very, very stupid question, so I do apologize if it is, but when you have Christopher portraying himself as Wrath and you have Marcus portraying himself as Vargar, is there a specific reason why you don't have an alias that you revolve around?
I mean, there's no other reason than that. Actually, you know, Chris and Marcus has this other band called Bewitched.
Yeah.
And who plays this 80s kind of thrash metal, and their stage personas in that band is Vargar and Wrather. And then Chris kept Wrather to shorten it to Wrath when he did some vocals for another band called Cerecloth. And nowadays they just include it, you know, because it's part of them. But I never played in Bewitched, so I never had a persona name. I don't see a point in having it either.
Yeah, because I've interviewed so many black metal bands now, and you know, from listening, like I feel like you guys and Watain are like one of the few bands that like go by your actual names and introduce yourselves. Like I interviewed Necro Butcher and Telach and, you know, with Nurgle and stuff. I was always curious to, like, to me, being that black metal is so raw and it's so real, maybe your real names is what makes it more dark and more in your face.
But I mean, I don't see the problem with having, you know, a name. You pick a name because that's maybe some part of the music you write, for instance. I mean, if that suits them better, mm-hmm. then why not?
Yeah. Do you almost feel like when you're on stage, and I don't think this could just be for your band, I think this could just be for black metal in general. Do you almost feel like you guys in a way like have to portray a character in a way on stage?
I don't feel like that. I mean, for me, I am the person that I turn into when I play this music, I would say. Mm-hmm. You know, before going on stage, I get into this mood or whatever, and that experience, that feeling is something that drives me on stage. But that's just for me personally. I don't know how it is for other bands.
Do you have that same energy or that same mood when you're in the studio as well, or is playing live and songwriting almost a completely separate art altogether?
I would say it's something completely separate. And I think also songwriting is a different feeling from standing on stage as well. But they all fit into the band experience, so to speak.
Is it almost kind of like a separate art that you have to master?
I don't know. I haven't actually thought about it.
Yeah, because
other than that, they are just big, major, important parts in the music.
Yeah, I've talked with a couple of hardcore bands that thrive on stage presence and crowd interaction, and like they say, it's almost kind of like the stage interaction and stage presence is almost like something you have to practice just as much as the material.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, sure. I mean, it's easier today. I mean, to get into that. What should I? To get into that feeling that you have when you are on stage today than what it was like 20 years ago when you maybe was nervous or thinking about other things. You couldn't enjoy it the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, when you do it so much, you just become so used to it, it doesn't even faze you anymore.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I was also curious about is that I know for Cerecloth, as well as your previous album, you've had Dirk, who obviously plays with Megadeth now, and his time with Soilwork, and his time with Aborted and stuff. Does he also, as a session musician, also bring in some newer stuff into the band?
Well, actually, Dirk played on Teras, but on Cerecloth, it's actually a guy called Ephraim, who has been playing live drums with us as well since Teras. Oh, okay. So he's the drummer from a band called Persuader and plays in a band called Guillotine as well. So Dirk was only helping us out on the Teras album.
Oh, okay.
But on that part, he was very professional. We sent him over the pre-production of the album, and he recorded it and offered some ideas. He made two versions. One where he played it like we wanted it to be played, and then he made another version where he presented ideas, of his own. Very respectful and very cool to work with, I must say.
Yeah, I'd imagine working with different drummers, like it almost has to bring in a new sound in a way, or maybe like stuff ideas that you may have not have had previously, right?
Absolutely, and I would say with Cerecloth, it was a huge thing for us to work with Ephraim because he had such a natural, organic groove in his drumming, and that caused us to step away from our. Usually, we have been very, focused on having everything perfect. Every stroke on the guitar, everything has to be perfect on the albums. But when we received the drums for the Cerecloth recording, we felt that it needed a more relaxed approach in the playing style. So it's a more, I would say it's a more natural, almost a punky approach to the recording of the guitars, which I think notices throughout the album. And also the sound, we wanted something natural, more organic now. And that was a big inspiration was actually from the drumming that Ephraim gave us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you guys do. I don't know what it is, but I've always felt like there was maybe a bit of a punk vibe behind you guys. There was such a rebellion against you guys. It almost seemed like, obviously, and I don't mean to pigeonhole you guys by any means, but, coming as a black metal band, I feel like there is such a, there's art to it and a way to approach it, like a usual, what Mayhem or Darkthrone or Emperor was doing. But I feel like you guys broke a lot of rules in yourself as well.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we never actually paid attention what you were supposed to do. We did it our way and just kept to ourselves and did it the way we wanted it to. Mm-hmm. We didn't care if there was any rules. Then we didn't bother about them.
Yeah. And I mean, with the earlier demos of saying "We are Naglfar, fuck you," I mean that it doesn't get more punk rock than that.
Yeah, actually, and that was actually more like you know more like a joke to the label actually.
Oh, really?
Uh, who asked for more material? Do you have more? Yeah, sure. So you just recorded that and then called it "We're Naglfar, fuck you" and sent it to him. So it wasn't really an official release, so to speak. It was a promo actually.
Did they end up knowing that, or did they end up finding out about that?
He will find out now, I guess.
All right, I didn't come up with it, but one thing I was also interested about is for your guitar work. Do you actually have a theoretical background that you work off of, or are you more self-taught and improvise a lot in your guitar work?
I am self-taught, I would say. I know Marcus went to school, but personally, I've just I learned from playing and writing riffs,
Okay.
basically.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's actually interesting. If you have a self-taught and a theoretical background, it seems like you guys. That's almost like you bring different elements to the table as a result of that, right?
Absolutely, and I try to learn as much as I can from Marcus as well. Which is, I mean, he is definitely the better player of us two. So it's I'm very pleased to have it to have it like that. But that because that keeps me developing my playing abilities.
Yeah. Well,
just by working with someone.
Yeah, well, I've had a discussion with a couple of artists. Sometimes theory could be dictating, and it may not. Like, I'm pretty sure if you show a black metal band to a music theory nerd, they would say that that goes against everything that you've learned. So, I mean, I think in the end, having both a theoretical background and having both a self-taught background, you could break all the rules and make up your own at the same time.
Absolutely. I mean, I believe that musical theory helps a lot, and I mean, it can take you to the next level. But if you can, the ability to start out on your own, for instance, and not be aware of the rules is also a big help as well, I think.
Mm-hmm. And you have your own identity. You develop your own identity as a way as well.
Yeah.
And you ready for the most difficult question of the whole interview?
Yeah, okay.
How do you know when a song is done?
When we reach the end. No, it's, I mean, the thing is, sometimes I write songs and I come up with stuff later, after it's released. I should have done like this and I should have done like that. And that should have needed a little bit of that, So, I mean, it's really difficult to say.
Yeah. A lot of people have say that, art is never finished, it's only abandoned, but that's such a cliche thing to say now.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, you just have the feeling that, yeah, this is it. This is how it's supposed to sound. I'm pleased. I can now show it to the world. But then, I mean, months later, I can go like, oh fuck, I should have just done this or that. So that's how it is.
Yeah. Well, didn't you once, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you re-release the Vitra album as well? So, like, adjusted that as well?
No, we didn't really re-release the album, but we did re-record a song of the Vitra album. But I think the only difference we did that then was basically to have some extra material for a mini CD.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we didn't want to release anything more of our new stuff. So we re-recorded Emerging from Her Weepings, but not to fix it. Basically, all we did we changed a guitar line to make and played it on the piano instead, just to make it different from the original.
Oh, so just a minor change.
I don't necessarily think that you should go and mess with what is out there.
Yeah, if the machine isn't broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Yep. And the final question I wanted to ask you is coming from the area of Sweden that you were. I mean, I ask just about every artist from Sweden this, and all my viewers are probably sick of me asking it. But for your area of Sweden, you guys are from Umeå, right? If I pronounce that right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So people think of Sweden. Everybody thinks that every Swedish metal band is all from Gothenburg or Stockholm. But like for your area of Sweden, was there kind of like a scene that you guys were very active in as well, or was the goal for Naglfar to kind of get outside of your border a little bit more and play more around the world more and spread the name even further?
I mean, in the 90s, we were separated from the Swedish scene. I think the Stockholm scene and the Gothenburg scene had more interaction because we were living like a 10-hour drive with car up north, separated. So we were just part of the northern scene, so to speak. Where there was a couple of cities, and I don't think we focused on playing the world. All we wanted to do was play. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
It does. But like, so it wasn't like you guys were playing with At the Gates or In Flames or Dark Tranquility back in the day.
I mean, we played. I mean, we did. They came up. We had some promoters, who brought some of those bands up, which was good for us. I mean, because we liked those bands. But I mean, we had a scene here in Umeå as well that was pretty cool back in the 90s.
Interesting. Is it still very prevalent now, or did it kind of fade away?
It did fade away, but we still have some cool bands, I would say. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's not as... I mean, there's still an active live scene and stuff, and people come out to it, but I think we're missing... we would need more young people, I think. Mm-hmm. Because nowadays, back in the days, when everyone was like 13, 15, 16, they all grew up. So now the age is maybe from 30 to 60.
Mm-hmm. You got to get some young blood there, right?
Yeah.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Is there just anything else? Obviously, thanks to a certain virus that shall not be named. Obviously, live shows aren't happening at the moment. But is there a chance maybe Naglfar will come to the States one day?
That was the plan before all this happened, and we hope to be able to come over as soon as this blows over, and when the live situation is back on its feet.
Yeah. Are you guys writing at all in between that to keep you guys busy, or are you just focusing on touring right now and maybe even practicing as much as possible?
Actually, we haven't been working that much. I'm writing in my home studio, but I have 2 other bands as well, so I'm keeping myself busy. And while writing for that, I also have some new Naglfar riffs, at least, and a concept idea for a next album that we'll probably leave behind before this is over anyway. So.
Okay. Yeah.
So I mean, there's nothing wrong with the creative part right now. That's happening for sure.
Yeah, and being that this album just came out last month, I mean, we still got plenty of material to digest.
Yeah, I mean, and we have at least 8 years.
Yeah, 8 years worth of material and 9 songs. It'll keep people busy.
Yeah, for sure.
But thank you so much, Andreas. Everybody, we are here with Andreas of Naglfar, Cerecloth, out on Century Media. Be sure to pick that up. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.